Welcome, Alphas. Today, we're going to do an interview style of an episode. I chose this episode because I feel like in the world that we live in 2023, we have a lack of male role models, and I think that's an issue. People ask me all the time, how do I end up with this alpha mindset? And I always want to tell them that it's my father that gave this mindset to me, and I think with this interview, my mission is to try to help younger men than me, men of my age, people in general that are just feeling lost, how to deal with failure and how to have a strong mindset, what I would consider an alpha mindset. So without further ado, I'm Dat Dude Dro, as always, the top alpha. Today I have my father. I'd like to introduce you. Before you start, I would like to tell you that you are my superhero. You're the person that makes me strive to be the best that I am. And I hope that I can either be the same man that you are or just a little bit better if at the end of the day. So please introduce yourself.
Well, first of all, Alex, thank you for having me visit with you. As you mentioned, my name is Pedro Antonio Cartagena. I was born in Puerto Rico in a place called Orocovis, which is exactly the middle of the island. Today, where I was born, is actually a natural forest site run by the National Forestry of the United States. And my family was moved to Bayamon, Puerto Rico, the San Juan area, where mom married my dad. And my dad was in the Army. And so we lived in Puerto Rico for a little while. Then we moved to California, to the Mojave Desert. For a number of years, we lived there in the desert. My dad was in armor types, tanks and things like that. And we were there for a little while. My dad was assigned to go to Korea, and we returned to Puerto Rico. From there, I went to Columbus, Georgia. And the reason I gave you that background is because in Columbus, Georgia, I went to high school and I joined the Navy under a program called the Sea Cadets. And so the Sea Cadets allow you to be in high school while you're in the Navy. And actually, it recruits you to go into the Navy right after you graduate. Upon graduation, I married my wife, my first wife, and from there we went to California, to San Diego, where I went to school. First, when I was first assigned to the Navy, I was a pharmacist, and after that, that job closed out, and they made us hospital corpsman. And within the hospital corpsman rate, I became a dental technician. Specifically, I was a dental technician that dealt with making prostheses. And I worked in that area for about 10 years or so. And after the military, I retired and became a principal. As I mentioned, I was in the Navy under the Sea Cadets. Part of that was a program called the Navy Campus for Education. And so throughout my career, I was able to go to school and get my education. And completing that education and retiring, I went to school and became a principal. And I retired about 5 years ago.
Okay. Well, thank you for the introduction. So with the intro of this episode, I found some information that kind of stood out to me and encouraged me to make this interview with you. So I would start off by saying these are roughly not exact stats, but I'm going to start off by saying when I heard this, it made me had to pause. So 80% of incarcerated men are fatherless. 80% of the suicides in America are males. And men today have, in general, 35% less testosterone than the men that were born in the generation of my father. So with that all said, I like to go through your timeline because I feel like the one thing that has always inspired me is your mindset of never giving up. And the things that I've seen you go through personally have shaped me as a man and as a leader and as a human being, essentially. So what we're gonna do is I'm gonna start off everything by talking about my life lessons that you taught me, and then we're gonna correlate that with your timeline and how you first found yourself in that situation, and how that implemented that into my life, and how you going through those experiences allowed me to become stronger as a man because I had a role model that was in front of me continuously doing X, Y, and Z. And without further ado, let's just go ahead and start. The first life lesson that you taught me: don't live check to check. Would you please tell the audience about your childhood? What was it like day to day, and the things that you saw that were negative and positive, and the things that stuck with you for mostly your whole entire life?
Well, as I was growing up, I come from a very, very poor family. And of course, a lot of the places that I frequented were people that had a few things to survive. And one of the most prevalent things that I noticed about that was that most of those families didn't have a male role at home. There were maybe a woman and children, but there was no father. So that actually had a big impact on me because I've had a role model most of my life, even though my dad was in the military as a career person, and he was away a lot of times. At the beginning of my life, I had my grandfather as a role model. And he actually had a great impact on me. One example is that he only had a third grade education, but he was able, with that level of education, actually achieve a lot of greatness in him. One of the things that he's always shared with me was at the time in the 60s, there was this American person called Martin Luther King. And even though we were in Puerto Rico and there were not a lot of news or things that would tell us about Martin Luther King, the papers did that. They had a lot of articles on him. And so I would read the articles to my grandfather because they were in English in what the paper was called, the San Juan Star. And so I would read it to him, and then he would have that conversation with me. So, through him, I learned some things about being a human being and sharing with other people. And again, some of the plight of the people that were in the United States that were not able to do things. And a lot of things that he told me was actually related to the things that I had observed. Parents who were single parents and parents that families had been broken. And so that was a big thing. Family was a big issue for us. That granddad always talked about family and keeping the family together. And so did my dad. So when my dad came, my dad also was big on family. And, he always shared with us as much as he could within stations. But, we always had that support. And I knew what that support was like. And having observed other people who didn't have that made me think about the family. And again, in the military, that is hard to do, but it was great that Dad shared whatever he could with me as a father, and also my grandfather.
Do you feel that if you didn't have the role model while your father was away, would that have impacted you negatively, would you say?
Yes, I think that, Dad shared some of the things that were what being a man was about, and he was very specific about making sure that the family was the main goal, to keep the family together. And this actually it was difficult for me because later on in life it actually posed some dilemmas for me. And as we, we'll talk about as we go on. But again, family was important in that notion, and Dad and Granddad always sort of share that with me.
All right, so this brings me to my next life lesson. Make sure you know who you marry / have kids with, and they have the same goals, life goals. Why did you want to get married? And at what age did you get married?
Well, I got married at age 17. As I mentioned, I was in the Navy Sea Cadets. And I was just getting ready to go active duty. And as soon as I finished the high school at 17, I actually joined the Navy. I married in March and joined the Navy in June. And we both together moved to San Diego, California, where we lived. And I went to A school and for being a dental technician, prosthetics. And my wife worked, and we were doing real well. In fact, under the Navy campus program, I was going to school, and so the family was going pretty good. It was hard for all of us because I would work during the day for 8 hours, and then I would come home maybe for an hour or two, and I would share with my kids and my wife. And then from that, I went to school for 3 hours. And coming back real late at night, just basically taking a shower and going to bed, and getting up real early in the morning, going to my Navy job. And again, continuing that routine. And for the family, that was very hard to do, both because school was very expensive and also because of the hours that I was spending away. One of the things that I did during that time as I was acquiring my education was to share with my children. Sometimes I'd actually take them with me to school, which they enjoyed quite a bit, but it's hard because kids, they like to play around. It's very hard to keep them in a classroom. So, but they actually experienced that with me, and I wanted them to know that it was expected that they would be going to higher education after high school. And so that the time that I was with them, that conversation was going on, and they could see why it was important by seeing what campus life was like. And so we worked and lived in San Diego for about 4 or 5 years. Before I was getting, I received orders to move overseas to Japan.
All right. Thanks for the long answer. Do you think that you? All right. Let me rephrase this. Did you have kids before you got married or after you got married?
Actually, I got married at 17, but my first son, Raphael, didn't come till 5 years later, because again, I was going to school, and I was trying to advance that as much as I could while I was stationed ashore, because part being in the Navy is being at sea. So I knew that once my shore duty was finished, I would go to sea. So I spent that time going to school. And one of the things that made it hard for us at that time when we didn't even have kids was, the goal of having a higher education was mine, but really my first wife did not share in that dream. So that was hard, because it was hard to sell it to her. And that's one of the reasons I was trying to get the kids in when they were old enough for me to take them, so that they could see that there was some exciting things around that. But my wife never shared that. That was a difficult situation for me. But again, working together, we tried to keep the family together as much as could.
What do you believe are things that a man should provide or a husband should provide while in marriage?
A husband should bring, first of all, love, caring, and a peaceful atmosphere. But the husband should provide for the family. Not to say that the husband only could provide, but I think that both husband and wife should work together. But the husband should ensure that they have enough to make sure that the family can work well and be ready for the future. The husband should bring models to the kids as to what to do and how to act in a civilized world. To share with them what is goals that are good and that can be realized. But always trying to share with the family what your goals are and what the family's goals are and how to act within the society that you're in. So basically act as sort of like the leader of the family. But again, also the wife should share with that. But I think that the husband brings the model of what behaviors is expected as far as male and females are concerned in the family.
What are things that you're looking for at this time in your life for a partner?
At the beginning, I was looking for a woman that was easy on the eyes. Obviously, being in high school, you look for that what we call a babe, and not so much. Education wasn't that important to me at that time. So, we both were coming right out of high school. We really didn't know that much about the world. We just initiated life with attraction, just basically with attraction, and that's about it. But I think in a marriage you need to go beyond that.
All right, so what you just said, looking back at the situation, what would you think about it looking now? Maybe not so much like a bad or a negative thing, but overall, what would you kind of take away from that situation?
Well, looking back, I would actually change a lot. One of the things that I would change is that you have to find somebody who has a mutual goal with you. In this case, my goal was education, and so I would look for a female that actually is educated, that can handle herself in ways that are important in society, and that can help the children to get a better education themselves, and that is capable of sharing with you in a way that you both have equality, but that each one has a something to contribute to the marriage, but always toward a mutual goal. Working together is very important. At the beginning, that was not that important, but now with experience, I know that probably it is more important than looking for somebody who's easy on the eyes. And again, there has to be some attraction, obviously. But the thing is, the essence is that it's a person who is educated enough to understand the responsibilities that they have, and that is working mutually with the father and together going toward a goal.
This brings me to my next life lesson. Have a process for anything and everything, but be adaptive. Which brings me to the next point in your timeline. You joined the military. Why the military, and why the Navy?
I joined the military because I was looking for a way to sustain and looking for education. As I mentioned, I joined the Sea Cadets and joined that Navy campus for education. So when I didn't know about that, and so I was looking at the Air Force and the Navy because they was the most technological areas of the armed forces. And so I chose the Navy because, first of all, I like the sea. I like to be at sea. And there was a lot of role models when I was growing up in San Juan. There's a lot of Navy guys around because we were very close to the naval base. And so they actually showed me some of the things that were available through the Navy. So I joined the Navy, and because it actually provided for me the areas that I wanted to go into, which was medicine.
What did you learn from the military Navy that you took for life that helped you a lot?
Well, one of the things that I learned, especially when I went to the Navy schools do not permit you to fail. Even if you have to repeat the course over and over and over, they do not let you go. So what happens is, while most military people finish the course the first time, it kind of puts into you the mentality that we don't quit, we don't give up, no matter how bad the situation is. We keep moving and working at it until it's done. Everything that I did in the military was that way. The Navy, and every time shows you, first of all, it shows you a procedure, which you asked me for. It shows you a process that works. And so when you learn to create processes, systems that work, little parts that come together and form that process, it helps you to solve problems. It helps you to overcome obstacles, and maintains you going toward a goal.
Can you please speak about how the Navy helped you with visualization as a tool to succeed?
Yeah, the Navy helps you to create a goal, and they teach you to sort of see that goal already realized and to work toward that goal. Identify the steps that lead you to it. And as you do that, once you get close to that goal, then you visualize the next step. Where does that goal open up? What doors are open so that you can go to the next level? And so you start incrementing some of the steps for the next level. And so you're constantly doing that. But as you do that, you create a more global vision of where you need to go and how things might work. Again, creating that procedure that leads you to go to there. So visualization is very important. Just like an athlete visualizing, for example, a basketball player that they make the hoop all the time, 100%. When you go to the game, it just becomes an automatic because you've already visualized what's going to happen. And so that's why visualization is good. And actually the Navy helped me to do that, to create that vision of the world and goals that are in front of me and how to get to those goals.
Would you recommend the Navy for anyone thinking of joining?
Yes. For me, all the armed forces are good. They actually show you to be organized, to be disciplined in what you do, which is one of the things that actually allows you to create a procedure, because you have to be disciplined enough to identify what is it that works and to keep doing it exactly how you visualized it every single time. So it is for me, the Navy was good in doing that because they have a lot of opportunities for you to learn new technology, new systems, and see the old systems working with the new systems because they go side by side. So you get a broader look of technology. So I recommend that highly because I think in the future technology it's a mainstay now, but it's even going to be more so in the future because we're going to become more and more technologically in society.
Why didn't you want me to join?
I didn't want you to join because I saw that your opportunities for education, as I mentioned, I came from a very poor family. So the opportunities for my family to pay for me to go to college were not there. But your opportunities to go to college and to go beyond what I was achieving were there. So I wanted you to have the opportunity to go to college without any obligations, to go to first the bachelor's degree, to the master's degree, and even beyond, but always looking for better opportunities that had nothing to do with the military, because for me, it was very difficult working 8 hours and going to school. I wanted you to have full-time school availability so that you can do better and learn whatever craft you decided to do on your own.
All right, so my final question for this section is, can you please tell the audience your rank and rate and your position that you left the Navy with?
Yes, I left the Navy as a Master Chief, specifically a Master Chief in the dental technician rate. At the time that I left the Navy, Navy-wide, there was only 9 Master Chiefs in the dental technician rate. And so that made it very unique. And even for chiefs, only 2% of the Navy makes Master Chief. So it actually was a highlight of my life. It was a great achievement. And it's a difficult achievement, by the way, to acquire. I was very proud of that. That was probably one of the best achievements that I can